Hey there, today we are going to go over function composition. In this video, we are going to go over function composition with numbers. We're also going to go over algebraic function composition where we are plugging in functions one into the other. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to go over what function composition actually is. It's written like this, where you have f of g of x, or you can also see it written as this. What this means is that one function's output becomes another function's input. Let me explain. When we have g of x on the inside, what that means is that when we evaluate g of x, whatever that result is going to get plugged into the function f everywhere that there is an x. So let's walk through an example together. Let's say we have this example where we are asked to find f of g of 1, where f of x is negative 3x minus 14 and g of x equals 2x squared minus 7x minus 3. What that means is that we are going to evaluate the function g where x equals 1, which means we are going to replace every x in g with a 1. So let's do that first. And now we are just going to evaluate this by following the order of operations. So we have 1 squared, which is 1 times 2 is 2. 7 times 1 is 7, and then 3. So now we have 2 minus 7 minus 3, which is going to be negative 8. Now we have this result. G of 1 is negative 8. G of 1 is negative 8. So how we can rewrite this is f of negative 8. So as I just mentioned, this function's output becomes this function's input. So now we are going to evaluate f at negative 8. So we are going to replace this x and this x with a negative 8 here. Negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24. Minus 14, that's going to be 10. So our final answer is going to be 10. Now I do want to address something. Order is very important here. So if I write down f of g of x, that is not the same thing as g of f of x. See, for the one on the left here, for f of g of x, what we would be evaluating is this function and plugging in that result into that function. On the right side, we would be taking this function, evaluating it, and then plugging that result into g. So I just want to be clear that order does matter here. We work from the inside out. Another way to think about that is whichever function is closest to the x is the one that goes first. For demonstration purposes, let's work out an example. Here we have f of x equals x plus 2 and g of x equals 3x. Now let's find f of g of 2 first. So just a reminder, what we're going to do is evaluate the function g at x equals 2, which means we're going to replace this and this with a 2. So g of 2 equals 6. Now we are going to replace 6 everywhere that there is an x in f, because that's what this inside function is. So f of 6 is 6 plus 2. And that result is going to be 8. Now let's do g of f of x and see what we get. G of f of 2, excuse me. So we're going to evaluate the function f at x equals 2. So we're going to replace these two with 2. So f of 2 is 4. Now we are going to replace every x in g with a 4. So now our final result is 12. So you can see here how these two numbers are not the same. It's very important that you follow the order that you're given. Now let's look at algebraic function composition, or in other words, composition with variables. Okay, I'm going to write out two equations that are going to be linear in form, and we are going to, one is linear, one is quadratic, and we are going to compose them. Here we have f of x equals 2x squared minus 5x minus 12, and g of x equals negative 2x plus 2. In the example, we are asked to find f of g of x, which means we are going to take this entire function and plug it into f, everywhere that there's an x. So this can be a little bit tricky, and you do have to make sure that you plug this in correctly. I recommend using parentheses every single time you plug something in, especially in this format where you have a linear function that's getting plugged into a quadratic function. Otherwise, things can get kind of messy. So what I'm going to do is write this out, f of g of x here. And I'm going to write our f function and leave some space wherever there is an x, because that's where our g of x is going to go. So just to recap that, what I did was I took the 2, wrote it here. I am going to be replacing this x, so I left a space, but I have my squared here. My minus 5 is here, and then I'm leaving space for this to be plugged into, and then my minus 12. Okay. Now I'm going to take my negative 2x minus 2, and that's what goes in here. Oh, plus 2, excuse me. Now, once we do this, we've already done the hardest part. At this point, we have to make sure that we now follow the rules of algebra in order to expand this and simplify it. But this right here is where most students make the mistake. So if you understand this part, then you should be fine. Just a quick reminder, whenever we have something that is squared, that is the amount of times that the parentheses are repeated. So when we go to expand this, this is going to look like this. Okay. Now we are going to distribute our negative 5 into our parentheses here. So we are going to have positive 10x minus 10, and then we're just going to bring down our negative 12 there. Now we can FOIL this, so we're going to distribute those and then these terms here. And then we'll focus on this 2 out here afterwards. We do have to follow the order of operations first. So this will be positive 4x squared. That's the product of negative 2x times negative 2x. Now the product of our outer terms is going to be negative 4x. The product of our inner terms is also negative 4x. And then the product of our last terms is positive 4. Now we can also combine these two terms out here. Negative 10 minus 12 is negative 22. We can also add these two terms together, and we're going to distribute this 2 in when we do that. So we'll go ahead and split these up here. So 4x squared minus 8x plus 4 plus 10x minus 22. Now let's distribute that 2 in. So we get 8x squared minus 16x plus 8 plus 10x minus 22. Now we can combine our like terms. So we have 8x squared minus 6x minus 14. And we're going to get an answer like this. So it's different. You can see how that when we initially evaluated a function composition with numbers, we ended up with a number as a result. Because we plugged in a linear function into a quadratic function, we now are ending with a full polynomial, and this is our final answer. Now, let's talk through a special type or some special types of function compositions where we actually end up having some domain restrictions. This can happen when we have functions that don't exist everywhere. For instance, if we have a square root function, we are going to have a certain domain. If we have a rational function, so something divided, we're also going to have a restricted domain. So let's look how this plays into a function composition. Here we have f of x equals the square root of x minus 2, and then we have g of x equals x plus 1. We are going to plug in x plus 1 into the function f everywhere that there is an x. So we are going to have the square root of x plus 1 minus 2. This works out to be the square root of x minus 1 because 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Now, the issue here lies in because we have a square root. When we have a square root, the term underneath of the square root has to be greater than or equal to 0. That's true all across math, unless you end up with an imaginary number. In this case, domains are x values that provide a good output for the function. So you want to think through, like, what could I get a result in my calculator out of? If you type in a negative number under a square root, you are going to get an error on your calculator because that is an imaginary number. When we're talking about domain, we're talking about real results only. So that means that we have to say x plus 1 has to be greater than or equal to 0. You must apply this every single time you have a square root function, because otherwise you're saying that the domain exists everywhere and it doesn't. And I'll show that to you on a calculator in a second. So if we add this to both sides, we're going to have x is greater than or equal to 1. So it is this answer, but we have to include that x has to be greater than or equal to 1 for it to work. So this answer alone would not be sufficient. You do have to apply the domain restriction. Now, let's pull up a graph and take a look at what this would look like if I were to graph this, and you will see why x has to be greater than or equal to 1. So here I am plugging in on our y equals button right here, and I typed in the square root of x minus 1. Now we're going to press graph. If we zoom in here, you can see that our graph does start at 1. Okay, and then it does not go anything past, it does not produce an output past 1, which is why it starts at 1. And then you can see this little blue dot is going all the way over, and at the top you can see the corresponding y values. If we go past to the left of 1, you'll see our y values stop producing because it does not exist there, at least in the real realm. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's do another example where we have a rational function with another domain restriction. Here we have f of x equals 1 over x minus 3 and g of x equals x squared. Find f of g of x. So remember, this is the same thing as f of g of x written this way as well, which means we are going to plug in this function right here. We're going to have f of g of x equals 1 over x squared minus 3, which is just 1 over x squared minus 3. Now, in math overall, we are not allowed to divide by 0 because that is an indeterminate form. Okay? It's undefined. So what we have to do is set this denominator equal to 0 to find out what our domain restriction is going to be. So we know x squared minus 3 is not allowed to be 0. We can add 3 to both sides. So x squared is not allowed to be 3. And in order to get x by itself, we are going to take the square root and include our plus or minus here. So x is not allowed to be plus or minus the square root of 3. But it can exist everywhere else. It just can't be positive or negative square root of 3 because if it is, we will get 0 in the denominator, which means that this is our answer up here with the restriction x cannot be plus or minus square root of 3. And this is our final answer here. So if this was helpful for you, I would love for you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There are a ton of resources on here to help you in algebra, college algebra, any high school math, and even test prep. So thanks for being here, and I hope to see you soon.